It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. You can also email me at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Programming note, this is my last hour of the week. I've been filling in, doing double duty for nearly 2 weeks, filling in for John every day, and then doing this show. I'm going to Dallas tomorrow, so you're going to hear a little tape tomorrow. Some of the best stuff for when I was filling in for Johnny. You'll enjoy that, and I will be back in this chair on Tuesday. John will be back doing the John Phillips Show on Monday. Now, and by the way, if you missed any of the 3 hours we did on OJ calls and OJ stories on the John Phillips Show today, you should check that out at kabc.com. Click on podcasts or search for the John Phillips Show because it was wild. A lot of people in this audience had run-ins with OJ. Some of them called him murderers. And the thing that really stuck out at me was how many people called in and said that OJ sucks at golf. Or I guess sucked at golf because he go bye-bye. Anyway, as you know, I try to cover as much LA City Council, LA Board of Supervisors, any of our local meetings of our elected officials that make between $200,000 and $300,000 a year because these are some of the most powerful politicians in the country. They directly control massive budgets, and the things they do affect us all greatly. I also listen because these public meetings tend to get disrupted by crazy loud people. Here's an example of what it's like usually for LA City Council President Paul Krikorian.
For items 17 through 22, we heard those in Budget Committee. I do not see the need for us to...
Excuse me, sir, you'll need to be quiet and sit down. You'll need to sit down and be quiet. I've warned you, you're ordered removed meeting. Please leave the meeting immediately and silently. Please leave the room silently and immediately right now. Right now. You're interrupting, sir, and you're not only disrupting, you are delaying the progress of this meeting. You'll need to leave, and I mean now. Rob Kwan, you're ordered to sit and be silent and not disrupt this meeting. That's your only warning. Leave the meeting immediately. Leave the meeting immediately.
So that happens almost every single meeting. But this week, there weren't any major disruptions at the LA City Council. The major disruption actually happened across the street over at the LA County Board of Supervisors. They were having their meeting. They meet almost every single Tuesday for like 7 or 8 hours. And their meeting got interrupted by a whole bunch of people from the group. They're called Youth Justice LA. And they had a bone to pick with the LA County Board of Supervisors. Let's hear what that sounded like. Unfortunately, Lindsay Horvath, not as forceful as a Paul Krikorian.
Get out.
But let's see how she handles when her meeting gets interrupted by very loud protesters.
So the first goal...
I could hear her. If you don't understand what she's saying, hey, BOS... Board of Supervisors, I've got something to say. Declare a state of emergency. Free all the youth today. What does that mean? Well, it means letting everybody out of juvenile hall. There were a whole bunch of people that took a Tuesday afternoon to show up and in unison shout down the Board of Supervisors. I don't even think that the probation department, which controls juvenile hall, was on the agenda that day.
Thank you for your message. This is now your second warning as you are disrupting the meeting and we need to conduct business. Thank you very much for your message. This is now your third warning.
We're getting to Janice Hahn territory real quickly because she's only on second or third warning. When do we get to the...
That's your final warning.
Thank you for your message. This is now your final warning.
Doesn't sound like a final warning, does it? By the way, Lindsay Horvath, learn from a pro.
This is now your final warning.
This is not nearly as tough as Janice was.
Thank you for your message. This is now your final warning.
That's your final warning.
Thank you for your message. This is now your final warning. You've been warned at the top of our meeting with the code of conduct to refrain from disruptive behavior pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.95. We now need to proceed with further action. You have been warned 3 times that your disruptive conduct.
Actually, it was 4 times, including that final warning.
That's your final warning.
3 times that your disruptive conduct may be subject to being removed from the podium or the boardroom.
They try to shut off some of the microphones, but they're still shouting. They're still shouting. You just can't hear it as well because they shut off a bunch of the mics that were televising this.
Okay.
At this point, Lindsay Horvath gets told by security, there's nothing you can do. We got to shut down the building.
Okay. We will now recess from the meeting. We will return to the hall shortly. Thank you very much.
Free the 50 now. So, they shut down a Board of Supervisors meeting. Let's find out why. The group Youth Justice LA posted a video of what they did, saying, "Today we shut down the LA County Board of Supervisors meeting, demanding they declare a state of emergency and free our youth from dangerous and deadly conditions created by the probation staff inside juvenile facilities. County and state officials must reject probation's corrective action plan and release all eligible youth immediately." Think about the kids that actually end up in juvie hall. You want them out? Oh boy. Continuous reports of probation staff sexually abusing kids, including one probation officer that got pregnant, youth gladiator fights, physical harm, bringing drugs into the facility, denying youth humane access to restrooms, programming, visitation, and food. No more, shut it down. It costs $800,000 a year to incarcerate one young person. Defund probation and invest in youth justice reimagined. This is the cause that a whole bunch of people showed up to shut down an LA County Board of Supervisors meeting for. Now, we have previously reported on the massive struggles going on at LA County Probation. We had 2 urban girls to talk about some of the open letters that they've been getting and secret letters from employees. The staffing shortages are so terrible, they pulled PO officers from the field who are supposed to check in on people who are on probation and put them in the juvie facilities, which is a job that they're not trained for. It is incredibly dangerous in there, and if you get attacked by one of these youth inmates, there's nothing you can really do about it. If they overdose, there's nothing you can really do about it. But I don't know if the answer is defund probation and close all the facilities. So that's what happened over there. Now, back to the LA City Council this week. While there weren't any major disruptions like that, there was one item that was voted on that I feel got very little press coverage. And this is the thing that is so irritating to me, specifically about what the LA City Council does. The Board of Supervisors doesn't do this. Other cities don't usually do this. But the LA City Council, because they know their meetings are televised and broadcast on YouTube and watched by people like the Smoke and Scan crew, they're very sly with how they present what they are actually discussing and what they are voting for. They will discuss what a certain agenda item is, what a certain ordinance is, what a certain bill is in committee. And in committee meetings, you'll hear things that are pretty crazy. But I honestly think sometimes I'm the only person that would ever listen to those. You have a few more people that will listen to an actual LA City Council meeting. But because they know there's a bigger audience and the citizens of Los Angeles might be quite offended at what they hear that are being discussed by the city council, they talk in code. So they have a whole bunch of items on an agenda. And instead of saying what those agenda items are, they put a description in the little caption box on the screen. And Paul Kokorian says, okay, we're just going to vote on agenda item 12. They don't read into the record what that is. if you didn't watch the previous committee hearing, you don't know what it is. So you have to be reading the agenda to even know what they're voting on. So it's very rare. Now, sometimes they do call an item for special comments, but for the most part, the vast majority of things that the LA City Council are voting on, they don't directly say what they're voting on. And sometimes they voted all these things in one big batch. It's real weird. Well, on Tuesday's LA City Council meeting, they were considering something called Item 30. And nobody at LA City Hall wanted to talk about what Item 30 was, but for the people that do show up at LA City Council meetings that want to speak in public comment, if they've read the agenda, then they'll know what Item 30 is. Item 30 just happened to be to reenact something called the Fair Chance Housing Ordinance. The Fair Chance Housing Ordinance, which was reintroduced by Imelda Padilla and Marquise Harris Dawson and Nithya Raman, originally put forth by Mike Bonin years ago, but then it expired. It prevents landlords from doing criminal background checks on prospective tenants. That's what it does. So if you happen to own an apartment building, you happen to want to rent out a room, somebody wants to rent that room, they fill out an application, you, under this ordinance, would not be allowed to do a criminal background check, find out if this person has recently been in prison or if they've had run-ins with the law. That wouldn't be fair. Because you got to understand, people who are getting out of prison, it's hard enough already. There can't be that many barriers to housing. And then there are some truths to the fact that we make life very, very difficult for people getting out of prison. I mean, yes, people in prison, they're serving their time, but once they've served their time, there is an argument that we make life really, really, really hard for them, even after they've already paid their debt to society. But, and this is where you kind of get torn on this issue, is it really fair to all the other tenants if convicted felons are living right next to you and nobody knows anything about it? So I don't have any members of the city council that were brave enough to talk about this. By the way, it passed 11-0. Krikorian and Curran Price couldn't vote on it because they're both landlords, so they have to recuse themselves. And 2 members didn't show up that day, Katie Young-Yaroslavsky and Monica Rodriguez, but everybody else said, sure. Let's make sure landlords are not allowed to look at the criminal history of people they want to rent to. Well, again, I don't have members of the city council who spoke on this, but I do have public commenters that spoke on this, including one person who was vehemently against it.
Good morning. If you could please remind us of the name you signed up under and the items you would like to speak to.
Hi, my name is David Gaishan, and I'm speaking on item 30 and general public comment.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for the item and 1 minute for general public comment. Please begin with the item.
Thank you. Item 30's file was established by a motion that seeks to prohibit the use of criminal background checks for tenant screenings. The reason this file immediately went dormant is that it would result in putting hardworking renter families in serious peril by forcibly exposing them to violent criminals, including convicted child molesters, rapists, murderers, sex traffickers, and drug dealers.
This guy's pulling no punches.
As we know, most renters are honest, hardworking families, many of whom are single mothers with young children at home. They live in multifamily buildings, sharing common walls, floors, and ceilings with their neighbors. They are literally inches away from one another and as a result have close interaction with many of their neighbors. To tie the hands of rental housing providers from screening out violent convicted criminals shows a complete disregard for existing renters trying to raise their families in a safe and harmonious environment. Rental housing owners are already effectively prohibited from ejecting renters for criminal conduct after they move in, as owners are unable to find any law-abiding renters.
Wait, if somebody, that the housing laws in this state, even if you're doing real crazy illegal activity, you still got to go through the eviction process.
Rental housing owners are already effectively prohibited from ejecting renters for criminal conduct after they move in, as owners are unable to find any law-abiding renters willing to testify against a bad actor due to fear of violent retaliation against them and their family. With this file, the city now considers...
your time has expired. Oh, that's your general public comment, though?
It's so irritating the way they run these things. Just let the guy finish what he's saying. He's got prepared remarks. He's not cursing at you. He doesn't have the goat puppet. Oh, yeah, if you didn't know, there's a guy that shows up to every single one of these meetings with a goat puppet.
With this file, the city now considers eliminating the one remaining tool of owners to protect law-abiding renters by screening out convicted violent criminals from initially walking into the door to their communities. When is the city going to start caring more about protecting and helping honest working families that are renters and less aiding and abetting convicted criminals? The city has already eliminated lower crimes from serving time, and DAs regularly bargain down high-level crimes, so the only ones left to serve time are the most serious and violent offenders. If the city
He's got a point there. The people that actually go in prison are the worst of the worst.
If the City Council wants to help formerly incarcerated individuals, they should be supporting funding for intensive mental health and addiction treatment in clinically supervised housing. Formerly incarcerated individuals must be given the time and therapy needed to relearn appropriate societal conduct. We urge a no vote on this item to allow the file to remain expired. Thank you.
So obviously the City Council didn't listen to that guy because they voted 11-0 to enact this ordinance and to reenact this ordinance. Let's hear what one of the supporters has to say.
My name is Bijan. I'd like to speak on number 30.
Okay.
And general public comment.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for the item and 1 minute for general public comment.
I'm a tenant organizer with Community Power Collective, and I'd like to support item number 30 so that right now tenants are experiencing a lot of evictions in court. And we want to make sure that this doesn't affect them in finding new housing.
Well, that's not what this is about. It's about criminal records, but sure.
A lot of times these evictions are due to non-payment of rent and rental debt accrued during the COVID-19 pandemic. We want to make sure that a lot of these tenants are hardworking families of color, and they're getting kicked out of their homes in waves due to a debt that they were never able to catch up to and pay back by the February 1st deadline. We want to make sure that even though they have a
General public comment?
even though if their record is affected, we want to make sure that they can still find a healthy home.
Well, I mean, if you are a prospective landlord, I understand people fall in hard times, but a landlord should know if somebody's been evicted, right? Is that the next step? Is that what he wants to go for next here?
To live in, to move in with their family. And this is affecting a lot of tenants. 153,000 households in LA are behind on rent, and 60% of those households were not able to repay the debt by the February 1st deadline. Tenants also requested $460 million from the ULA rental assistance program, but the fund only had $30 million available.
Oh yeah, ULA, the millionaire's tax, didn't bring in the millionaire mansion tax didn't bring nearly as much money as Hugo Soto Martinez said it would.
So even though tenants have been requesting help, the city has been unwilling to help them.
So this guy didn't even get what the purpose of this is, but let's go to another no perspective. Here's Brock Landers, who is part of that Smoke and Scan crew and usually says very offensive things that I can't play on the air to Paul Krikorian.
30, the fair chance housing. Are you guys going to set up a fund for the property owners who aren't allowed to look at someone's criminal history and then have damage to their property by a tenant that they wouldn't have rented to? Do you guys do background checks on your staff? To show everyone how safe it is, why don't you offer to pay for nannies for people in the community if they hire the nannies without doing a background check, and then you can have people from prisons come out and be nannies?
So that was a lot of the public comment that we heard on item 30. Again, the city council didn't want to say what item 30 was, but they voted yes on it, 11-0. My question to you, now that you know what was just passed by the LA City Council, is what do you think? Do you think landlords should be allowed to do a background check on a tenant's criminal history? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Or do you think there are way too many barriers to get into housing, and once somebody's out of prison, they should be given every opportunity to show that they are reformed? Do you think landlords should be able to check into a tenant's criminal history? 800-222-KABC, It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number. The LA City Council voted 11-0 on an ordinance that would prohibit landlords from looking into or inquiring about a tenant applicant's criminal history. Do you think landlords should be able to get a background check and find out if the person they are going to rent to has a criminal history? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Hector in Southgate. Hector, hello.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm for the landlords to rent to the people that they want, not criminals, not having criminals into their building that will affect law-abiding, families that are just trying to survive. And it also reminds you of last week. I guess you heard that the state assembly up there, they voted down a bill that this lady was trying to pass to stop the drug dealers. Did you hear about that one?
Oh, if somebody was in the country illegally and got caught dealing fentanyl, they'd get turned over to ICE. Yeah, they do that one all the time.
Get caught with fentanyl and they don't want to deport them. I mean, that's why crime is out of control. Nothing's going to get done here as long as we have people like that running this state.
Well, unfortunately, we get a lot of that. Thanks for the call, Hector. Appreciate it. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC. You can also email me at randykabc@gmail.com. Programming note, after 9 straight days of filling in for Johnny, I am actually going to be out tomorrow. It's going to be a Best of the John Phillips Show, noon to 3, and it's going to be a replay of some of the stuff I did filling in for Johnny on this show on Friday and Monday. But I made it to the end. I even had a wild stomach bug yesterday, but we made it the 9 days, and Johnny's going to be back on his show Monday. I'll be back live doing that show and this show on Tuesday. In the state of California, we have heard about a lot of car theft stories. Car thieving is through the roof in places like Los Angeles, in places like San Francisco, in places like Oakland. What's new is the way cars are getting stolen. And we're not talking about being able to steal a Kia or a Hyundai with a USB drive. And we're not talking about being able to clone a key fob in a Chevy Camaro. No, here's a new one. Somebody driving their car on the streets of San Francisco gets an attempted car thieving while they're driving. How does that happen? Some crazy guy with a tow truck tries to pull under them and tow them while they're driving. For more on this insane story, let's go to KGO.
Well, getting your car towed can be a pain, but how about getting towed while you're driving? It's an alarming ordeal.
Imagine you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic. The car in front of you is a tow truck. It lowers the little things that lock into your wheels and starts trying to back into you while you're in the car.
It's an alarming ordeal one East Bay couple experienced while running errands in San Francisco. I spoke to them in a story you'll see only on 7.
What the are you doing?
That's the
That would be my reaction too.
What the are you doing?
That's the sentiment from the man who witnessed what happened to Joanne and her husband as they drove through downtown San Francisco Tuesday morning.
We're at a stoplight and we're just minding our own business.
While the couple were stopped along Bush and Montgomery, they thought the yellow specialty towing truck was moving toward a nearby Waymo autonomous vehicle, but soon realized it was getting too close for comfort.
He came from the side. He started doing the reverse and all the lights came on. That's when we were like, okay, something is really wrong. And
yeah, this has got to be so scary. There's nothing you can even do because you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic.
And his lever came down.
The tow truck makes several attempts to hook on to their 2017 Toyota Corolla. When the light turns green, the Waymo next to them drives off. But Joanne, who requested we only use her first name, realizes her husband, who's driving, is stuck in front of this black sedan.
And we were freaking out. The first instinct was to make sure that we get away.
Fortunately,
I'm so glad their first instinct was to get out of the car, because that's what this insane tow truck person probably thought would happen. Scare them to the point where they get out of the car, then he can tow up the car and run for the hills. I don't know what's going on here.
Fortunately, the black car backs up and Joanne's husband is able to drive away. You can see the tow truck give chase. Joanne says,
so now this couple who almost got their car towed while they're driving it, they luckily are able to get in the other lane. They start heading for the hills, and the tow truck driver's chasing them like a scene out of the Terminator.
You can see the tow truck give chase. Joanne says, for several blocks.
It's definitely really scary.
We reached out to Specialty Towing via email and phone, but did not hear back. The company...
I'm surprised they didn't want to give comment to this story.
The company, along with 2 others, were charged by City Attorney David Chu this past February for fraud and illegally towing parked cars. They're now...
Oh, so you're telling me this isn't a legitimate business that tried to tow the car while it was driving?
They're now prohibited from bidding or receiving city contracts. Joanne and her husband tell me they were eventually able to lose the tow truck and drove back home to the East Bay. They maintain they didn't do anything wrong and are still perplexed as to why they were targeted.
Full disclaimer, I definitely paid off my car. There's no, late payments or anything.
I didn't even have that question. Because no legitimate repossession service would try to tow somebody's car while they were driving it. That is wild.
I paid my registration.
She's planning to file a police report soon and is sharing their story to raise awareness for other drivers.
Be more careful when they're driving around, as well as just making sure that
wasn't even a inconspicuous truck. It's not like one of those AAA white trucks. No, this is a big yellow truck. You see a big yellow towing truck, watch out. It might be trying to steal your car.
If something kicks in or if something doesn't look right, make sure you do your best to protect yourself.
That's good advice. Now, this video has been going viral on social media. Thousands of people stunned by the truck driver's actions. We'll be sure to let you know if we hear anything back from Specialty Towing.
I will say it is well worth your time to seek out this video. A lot of people are posting it out there. You can look on ABC7 News Bay Area for the full video. It is a wild scene. And just, in the most innovative state in the nation, California, we keep innovating new ways to steal cars. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Let's go to Frank in Glendale. Frank, hello.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
Can you hear me? Hey.
I can.
Yeah, so I'm just questioning. So this happened in February, and the couple, they're only deciding to file a police report now. Why did they wait 2 months? It just seems a little fishy.
That's an interesting aspect of this. I mean, according to the reporter for ABC7 up there, they are now going to file a police report. I mean, the thing is, maybe they said, I would imagine that if this video is just coming out now and including the guy that screamed about it.
What the are you doing?
I don't know if, this happened that long ago, but there's something crazy going on here. That, if you've seen the video, it's wild.
Yeah, I saw it. And was it from the Waymo car? Was it from the husband who got out of the car? The wife? What happened? It just doesn't make sense.
It's real crazy. Can you imagine you're in a car and a tow truck's in front of you and they start trying to back into you?
Yeah. And there's a lot of rogue tow truck drivers. There's a racket going on, so it happens all across the country. So, yeah, I'm not surprised, but then again, on the flip side, it just 2 months just waiting this long. If something happened to me, I'd do it ASAP, right?
I think you're right about that. Hopefully we get into a big investigation about this because that video is wild.
What the are you doing?
It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Just to clarify for Frank in Glendale, I went back and looked at the story. The incident with the tow truck happened on Tuesday, not in February. So that is completely legitimate for them to just file a police report now. It happened just a couple of days ago. But there you go. Sometimes you don't hear everything as clearly as I do when you're listening to the radio because you're also driving. But thanks so much for calling in. It's a wild story. We will be following it. Another wild story from this week that I covered and we took calls on during the John Phillips show was the fact that in Pasadena, the metal thieving has upgraded to stealing the iconic 100-plus-year-old bronze light poles. And that's what they're stealing. They're ramming them with cars, probably stolen Kias, and then they're taking the poles, melting down the bronze for like $500, and it costs well more than that to replace them. When I had that story and I brought it to the KABC audience, I had a report from ABC7, and it was good. However, as soon as I got off the air, what did I see from Fox 11? An Ed Laskos version of that story. And you know, when we hear Ed Laskos, we got to go for it.
They should think again.
Ed Laskos is the greatest thing that ever happened to local television news.
Enough already.
And this is my favorite Ed Laskos piece.
It's a man all set up. He's posing as a child online, lures in the suspected child predator. That predator shows up thinking he's going to have a date with a 15-year-old. It's a date, all right, with the law.
Let's listen to Ed Laskos talk about the pole thieving.
Thieves stealing bronze light poles as Pasadena police searching for those responsible tonight.
Fox 11's Ed Laskos has a story. He is live in Pasadena with more. Ed?
And Christine, stealing light poles of all things, but you know what they're really after here? They want the bronze, because that bronze that makes up those light poles, that bronze is priceless, more than 100 years old. Have a look. One of those poles stood right over there where that street marker is. It's been there for the last century now. It's gone.
I love him.
South Orange Grove Boulevard, now left with the scars of the latest crime wave. These bronze light poles that have stood here for more than 100 years, now gone, stolen in the blink of an eye.
A truck went by, and it was very loud, clanging kind of thing, and he had a trailer behind it. And I looked around, and clearly the guy had parked the truck in the driveway, gotten out, walked over to the pole like that, and was wrapping something around it. That pole is still there. They didn't take that pole out. For whatever reason, it didn't work.
Yeah, wrapping the chain around the pole doesn't work. The only way you get the pole is if you ram into it with a stolen car.
Just maybe he scared them off. And check this, the light pole prowler leaving so fast he...
Light pole prowler. I love you, Ed Laskos.
Leaving so fast he even leaves behind his chain, still wrapped around the pole, ready to take it down, leaving nothing, only the electric wiring to mark the spot. How serious is all of this?
Very serious. Just in the last 4 days, we have had 11 of these light poles stolen.
11?
11 within just a few square miles.
By the end of the weekend, there won't be any lights left.
All this going down in the very last place you'd ever expect. One of the oldest neighborhoods in all of Pasadena, still marked by the bronze poles every 30 feet with the lit ball on top, a relic of the past. When they call this Millionaire's Row, it's still where the floats line up for the Tournament of Roses.
They pride themselves on the
They're going to be organizing that parade in the dark next year.
They pride themselves on the historic significance of the street, including these light poles that have been here since the 1920s. So you can't replace things like that. They're priceless.
Priceless, she says, but now pricey. On the black market, bronze is in high demand, meaning each one of these poles worth a good $500.
Yeah, for a pole like that, that seems kind of low. And the cost to replace that pole, way higher. But hey, since we don't enforce this kind of crime, and since we don't go after the crooked recyclers that are out there, I guess all the metal's for the taking. I mean, at least this isn't as offensive as when they're prying off the placards in the cemetery.
No wonder Pasadena police working the streets. They have had enough.
We really need to go after, the middlemen, and that's where our detectives are great. They'll really target where they're fencing this and try to narrow in on the suspects here.
But until that happens, the search is on for one, or probably even several thieves, all stealing a part of this city's past.
I wonder how many people watch the local news just so they can get new ideas on what they should be stealing next.
You would have to have somebody helping them. You would have to have somebody else, but the other person didn't get out of the car at that point in time. So, anyway.
Crazy.
That's life. I lived in New York for many years. You see all kinds of stuff.
And now he's seeing all kinds of stuff here in Pasadena. He says, you're looking live, one of those light poles. Look how pretty it is in the darkness, lighting up. That bronze is priceless, really over.
The man really paints a word picture.
It's really over 100 years old. The city says they will replace the ones that have been stolen, melted down. But they admit it's not going to be the same. How can you get that type of bronze, that type of metal, that type of material anymore?
Well, I know some recyclers that have recently come into a whole bunch of bronze, maybe they'll sell it back to you.
Meantime, police out here in force tonight. Lots of black and white patrols. They had 2 of these poles ripped off just overnight, and sadly, they're thinking these thieves could strike again tonight. We'll see. For now, we're live here, Pasadena. Back to the west.
I just couldn't let us go without having the Ed Laskos take on that story. Ed Laskos, the man of many words.
About a suspect not armed with a gun or a knife, but lighter fluid and not afraid to torch anything.
Well, that's going to do it for me. Oh, thank you so much for keeping me company this last, I'm here every single day with y'all, but I've also been filling in for Johnny every day for the last 9 days. So it's finally over. I'm going to Dallas tomorrow, so you'll hear a tape version of this show where it's some of the best stuff from me filling in for Johnny. You'll hear Best of the John Phillips Show, noon to 3. Johnny's back on his show Monday. I'll be back here live on Tuesday. But thanks so much for joining me. You can send me emails over the weekend. And I love talking to you. I love that we do this show. Download all the podcasts as well. KABC.com. Click on podcasts or search for the KABC News Blitz on Apple Podcasts. And I'll keep you company all weekend. Have a great one, everyone. We'll see you later. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.